And what we do is we construct a graph so just using Wikipedia's hierarchy, right? So if one is a subcategory of the other, there is an edge between them. And then we weight these edges. Okay, how strong are the connections between the two? So if you're really interested in the technical details, I recommend that you read the paper. Okay, so but once we have this graph, we do something called so we basically cluster the graph. There is an algorithm called the graph coarsening algorithm. Again, software for this is available on the web, and the paper you could read to understand this algorithm. So basically what it does is cluster based on the edge weights that you have, and we have a bunch of categories which are all very similar to each other. Okay? And what we want to do is simply label these clusters, and we have our canonical label. So again, you might wonder, labeling the cluster, isn't that a complicated problem? So yeah, it is a tough problem, but there are techniques to do it. Okay? So again, as I said, not too many. I'm not talking about too many details, but if you're interested in it, I would suggest that you read the paper. Okay? And finally, something that you would recognize from the previous part of the talk, so build this lexicon of support and oppose phrases. So we started off with a bunch of seeds, right, like he supports, she supports, and so on. But obviously, there are a lot of other phrases which also make sense. Now, what we want to do is learn these patterns, and we did that. In fact, using the same technique that I talked about. We have entity facet pairs, which we know are true, or if it's a support pair, then we actually manually inspect, and we know that this entity supports this facet or opposes that facet. We know these pairs, and we query Google with these pairs, and then we analyze what's in between. Okay? So we also tried a bunch of other techniques, but what worked best for us was this unsupervised technique. So just query the pairs, analyze the pattern in between, and we get a bunch of phrases. So here is, and here's just some examples of these phrases that we extracted. So for support, we had approve, acknowledge, campaigned for, strongly defends, and for oppose, we had criticized, speak against, campaigned against, attacks, things like that. So there's something like 20 or 25 different phrases that we extracted. Okay, so I think I will stop here. And this is also the end of the first part where I talked about knowledge bases and how to construct knowledge bases and so on. So in the second part, it's going to be a little bit technical, but not too technical. It's still going to be at the intuitive level. I'll talk about querying and ranking. So now you have an opinion base, what you want to do with it, right? Obviously, you want to use it in some way. And one of the ways you use it is to query it. You want querying, you want ranking. So that's where the next part goes. Okay.
Guys, a couple of quick updates. Over the next 2 days, we have an interesting lineup over the next 2 days. Chalaya will give us a little more details on that.
Hi. So I think you might have seen the Eventbrite site. Today evening, right after this lecture, we have a panel. Most of our speakers will talk about their future research directions. And we have one or more of the speakers will be moderators. Typically, this has been a very good session, the panel. So I would strongly urge you not to miss that. And I think in hallway conversation, a couple of folks were asking, okay, we are learning a lot of fundamentals and how Yahoo or other companies in the industry are using a lot of this stuff. So we organized a session completely for that tomorrow afternoon. Some of the people from Yahoo product groups or businesses will be talking about how some of the things we learned over the week are being applied today within Yahoo. And last but not least, Saturday afternoon session is Yahoo Labs, Bangalore or India. A couple of folks who are doing research, relevant research in this space, they're going to be talking about it. So we really hope that you'll show the same enthusiasm you have shown throughout the week attending all these sessions, in these finale sessions also. I think I'll leave it to Dikshita. She has some encouragement for you to do that. She'll talk about that.
Okay. Okay, I know a lot of you have been asking about the certificate of participation. That along with the goodies will be distributed over tomorrow and day after. So please make sure you're present to collect that, and if your friends aren't here today, let them know as well. Thank you.
Okay. So I'll just start with the last maybe 30 to 40 minutes. I think the plan is to stop at 4:30. So I'll cover as much as I can. At least the quizzes, I should cover all of them, right? Okay. So far we talked about how to construct knowledge bases, or at least some techniques to do so. Now, obviously, if you build a knowledge base, you want to do something with it, because there's no point in just storing it on disk. So one of the fundamental things that you would like to do is to query the knowledge base. In fact, we started with a bunch of example queries. So we wanted to answer these queries, and we said that's the motivation, so we have this knowledge base. So now let's go back to that and see, okay, I want to query. What are the issues that come up, and what can we do about it? So one of the things that I want to talk about is ranking. So the way I see a knowledge base is the way I see Google or Yahoo or Bing. So these are large repositories of information which people query using keywords right now, and which return a bunch of documents, and these documents are ranked, right? So saying the top ranked document is most likely relevant to your query, and you have a screen of 10 links usually, which are ranked. So that's the kind of mode in which at least one use of the knowledge base is to query in that mode. So you have a query and you want the best results for that query, best in some sense. So there is a ranking issue that comes into play. So let's talk about querying and ranking. So the difference is that as opposed to unstructured data, we now have structured data. So we have triples. And one of the interpretations of a knowledge base of triples is that it's also a graph, right? It's a giant graph. And we want to query it and we want to rank the results, okay? So the first thing we need to do is, what's the basis for ranking, right? So we have a bunch of triples. How do we, and there is this query, and how do we say that one query is better than the other? So let's look at what information retrieval does for ranking. So the basis for ranking in information retrieval is that it computes many different kinds of statistics, and it combines these statistics in specific ways to come up with a scoring function, which then leads to ranking, right? So I think you would have come across this before, maybe even in this summer school. So term frequency and inverse document frequency, for example, are statistics, and you could come up with a scoring function which combines the two together and use that as the basis for your ranking. So this is in IR, where you have keyword queries and unstructured data. So how can we do the same for knowledge bases now, right? So now it is structured. What kind of statistics could we possibly have that could help us do ranking in a similar way? So this whole section on ranking, it's all about applying IR techniques. So keyword search for unstructured data or unstructured text. Can we adapt the techniques there for structured data, structured data and structured queries? Okay, so that's the idea. So these knowledge bases conceptually, triples, it's like you want to convert this whole web into a knowledge base. That's what we said in the beginning. That's the grand goal. So you can conceptually think of going around, extracting these triples all over the place in a bunch of different documents. So you keep seeing the same triple many, many times. So you see the same triple a lot of times, then that means maybe the triple or that relationship is really popular. That fact is really popular. So that's a way in which you can collect statistics, right? And as you'll see next, the basis of our ranking technique is based on what we call witness counts. So how many times did you witness the same triple when you were extracting this off the web? But as we know, we didn't exactly do this, right? We didn't do this. What we need to do is approximate these counts. We can't actually go around the web extracting them. So we need to approximate these counts. And there is a way, so one of the techniques that we used is to query the web in a special way. So what we did was take the triple, take the terms in the triple, and query the web, phrase queries. At the top of the web page, there is an approximate count of the number of results. And we took that as an approximation of witness counts. So this is not really, an accurate thing, but I guess it's accurate enough, right? So, and various funny things happened during this. And in fact, if some of you are interested and you have a better idea of how to do this, please let me know. So one of the things is there are these movies which have, so we started with a movie database because that was the one which was the cleanest that we had at that time, so IMDb database. And we said, let's collect these witness counts. So we had movies which had very common words like crash, for example. You try querying crash with anything, you get like millions and millions of results. And there are certain movies, I forget which, but I think it was just one symbol, right? Like some exclamatory mark or something like that. Pi? Okay. I don't know. I mean, these kinds of weird movie names, they also turn out to be really common names. And now you want to approximate these counts with these common names. I mean, no way are you going to do it. So what we did, this was all behind the scenes, is that we removed those problematic triples from our knowledge base and then use the cleaned up one. Okay, so I know you are waiting for this. What does this signify to you? Okay, so it's not the previous generation, right? I was thinking, who would really know about this now? I mean, I thought there was a whole generation in between, but either there are old guys here or there is no generation gap. It's all a myth. But yeah, this is the poster for Jaws, film that will make you very afraid. Okay, so why do I want this? Who directed Jaws? Spielberg. Yeah, let's change our knowledge base and we have Spielberg in the list. Okay, so again, a bunch of movies, but this time augmented with witness counts. Okay, so this is basically each triple, how many times, so these are all approximate counts right now. The triples have approximate counts. So how many times did we extract this triple from the web? And these are basically made up numbers, frankly, just for the purpose of illustration. So what we have is a knowledge base with some statistics. Okay. So now comes, I guess, what would be the technical part, actual technical part of the talk, because I want to introduce language models. And first I'm going to talk about language models for IR, as it's used for IR, and then see how the same can be applied, in our case, structured data and structured queries. Okay? So I believe you did come across language models before, right? A day ago or 2 days ago? No? Anyway, I'm going to make it very simple. And it's actually simple. I mean, once you know it, it's simple, let me say. But initially when I started with this, it took many, many months looking through a lot of literature until I could crystallize what language models are all about. And let me tell you, the way I'm going to describe language models is just one way in which you can use language models for retrieval. So there are many different ways to derive the scoring function, still making use of language models, and I'm going to use one way to do it. Okay? and that way is due to Zai and Lafferty. You can look up their paper. It's a big paper, nice paper. Okay, so what's the fundamental idea here? So what you have are a bunch of documents in your corpus and a query. And what you're going to do is, conceptually, you're going to regard every document in your corpus as well as the query as samples from an underlying probability distribution. Okay? So the idea is that there is a person who's writing a document with some intention in mind, and that intention is kind of approximated by probability distribution of words. Now he's going to use certain words more frequently than others in order to come up with that document. So take the guy who wrote the document or wrote the query out of the picture. So what you have is a probability distribution from which this document or this query came about. Okay? So you don't know what the probability distribution is, but you do know the sample. You know a sample of that probability distribution. So each document came up from its own probability distribution. Okay? So that's the fundamental assumption that you make. So what's the tough thing here? We don't know what this probability distribution is. And this is what we call a language model. So there's a language model. This probability distribution is called a language model. And we need to estimate the parameters. So we need to say basically what's the probability of each term in this probability distribution. We have the sample, so we kind of reverse engineer what the probability distribution was supposed to be. Okay? So we do this for every single document in the corpus as well as the query. So if there are like n documents in the corpus and the query, we have n plus 1 different probability distributions. So the basic idea is this. Take the query and one document. You have their representations, you have their language models, which are again probability distributions, and measure how close these distributions are. So if they are close, then that document is very relevant to that query. Okay? Is this basic idea clear? So conceptually what you're doing is comparing probability distribution of the query to each document in the corpus. And then you're going to say the closest probability distributions, the documents corresponding to the closest probability distributions are going to be in my top answers. Okay? Is this clear? I think it's a very neat way of thinking about this problem. So just to make it a little more visual, so here are your documents. This is your corpus. So each document, this is the probability distribution of which it is a sample. Okay? So conceptually, this is what it is. So each document emerged from its own probability distribution. And you have the query, which also came from a probability distribution. And then you want to see how close this distribution and this distribution are, and this, and so on. You compare, and then say the closest ones are in my top. Okay? And the x-axis here are the words in the universe, right? So you have this universal set of words, and the y-axis says what's the probability of that word. So yeah, a probability distribution over words, that's what it is. So the key part is how do you estimate these probabilities, right? So we have what is known as the maximum likelihood estimator. So it simply says, so for a document here, probability of the word given the document is count the number of times that word occurs in the document divided by the total number of words in the document. Simple, right? So just take a document, count how many words it has. That's your denominator. And then if you want to find the probability of a word, just count the number of times that word occurs in the document. And there you have it. There is a probability distribution. But this, if you just leave it at this, you're basically overfitting your probability distribution, right? So you're saying the document as I have it is exactly the distribution from which it was sampled. But we know that that's not really the case. So if you have a document about tigers, right? So you have lots of occurrences of the word tiger in the document. It has a very high probability. But then, if you look at the probability distribution, maybe the word cat is also something that should be there with a non-zero probability, but except that in this sample you don't find the word cat. A tiger is a cat, right? So it's perfectly possible that the word cat has a non-zero probability in your fundamental probability distribution. It's just that in this sample you don't see it, right? So you try to, so once you calculate these probabilities, you try to smooth them, right? So it's not like these words have zero probability, these words have non-zero probability, and that's it. Just say, yeah, there are these words which have zero probability, they're not actually zero. They have some probability. And these that you're saying have really high probability, they're not that high. It's just that this sample has, So you kind of try to smooth it down a little bit. And there are many different ways to smooth it. What is shown here is called linear interpolation or Jelinek-Mercer smoothing. So this part is what we computed here, and this part is computed from the corpus. Okay, so a document is always part of the corpus. So you're going to smooth the probability of a word based on its probability of occurrence in the document as well as the probability of occurrence in the corpus. Okay, and you weigh them through lambda. Okay, lambda into 1 minus lambda, and lambda is between 0 and 1. You compute this here, and this measure gives you how far away G is from F. Okay, so there is the specific interpretation of this based in information theory. If you're interested, you can go look it up. For our purposes, let's just take it as a measure of how close two probability distributions are. So what we have is query Q, and we estimated the LM of Q as PQ, and we have a document D, LM of D is PD, and then we measure the distance. It's not distance, it's divergence, and the smaller the divergence, higher is the relevance, because that indicates that they're close together. Okay, so this is for text and keywords, but what we want to do is graphs, right? So we have triples, structured data. So here are some differences between the two. So the basic unit under consideration in text is unigrams or words, individual words. So I said that the probability distribution is over words, but it can also be over bigrams or trigrams or in general n-grams. Okay? While in our case, the structured case, we are really dealing with triples as units. Triples, it's not triple templates, it's triple patterns, and n tuples of triples. Like if your triple pattern query, if your query has 2 triple patterns, or let's say your query has 3 triple patterns, then the result is a 3 tuple, right? So that's what I mean by n tuple, a 3 tuple of triples. So those are our units. Okay, so the difference there. And the basic retrieval unit again differs. So in text IR, it's a document, which is already there. You know that something is a document. While in our case, we have the result graph or the n tuple that is computed on the fly based on what the answer is. And of course, the corpus, which was used for smoothing and so on, it's a set of documents, but for us, the corpus is a single graph. That's our corpus, or the set of triples, or the knowledge base. That's our corpus. Okay, so let's consider exact matches first. So this is the most basic kind of querying that you would do. So the question basically asks, give me the Spielberg movies which had genre war. Okay? So the triple pattern corresponding to that is Spielberg directed X, X has genre war. So you have a bunch of matches. So for the first triple pattern, you have these matches, Schindler's List, Munich, 1941, and all of them have genre war. Okay? Sorry, I should say that it's not just for the first triple pattern, these matches. I mean, these matches are for the entire query. So you have these 3 results. So does anyone know of 1941? Yes? No? It has genre war, but I understand it's also a comedy. I didn't know that. Okay? So, if you're thinking in terms of ranking this result, the assumption that we are making here is that the more popular answers should come on top. Okay? So this may be the right or wrong way to think about ranking, but it's one way. So we are saying that the more popular a result, the more important the result. So we are splitting it two. And that's what I'm going to be developing a ranking function on. It's perfectly possible that you want to be surprised because you already know about Schindler's List and Munich. You know about them. You don't care about them. You want these other rare movies of Spielberg. So 1941 should indeed be on top, right? But that, I guess, would be a personalization issue where the system would learn what your personal preferences are, whether you like the rare things or the popular things. So that's a personalization thing. So this is for the general user who would query this. You would want the popular results to come out on top. And basically, at the heart of it, this is the idea. All you're saying is, if the triples are popular, then the result which contains the popular triples, I want it ranked higher. That's it. That's the idea of this. But I'm going to build a whole machinery around it. Why would we do this? Because it's more principled to do it. I mean, there are certain things, intuitively they're really nice to think, but if you really want to examine these things, implement them and test them out, you need a proper basis for doing so. And language models provides one of those bases. So at the heart of it, even if you say, isn't it just about looking at results with the popular triples? Yes, it absolutely is. That is the basic idea. I'm going to build this machinery simply because it allows me to test ideas, make variations, and so on. In a systematic manner, that's the key. Okay, so as I already said, what we want is a query model, and we want, so what we had in text IR is for each document. In our case, it's going to be for each result. We want the document model or the result model, and for the query, we want the query model, right? We want to build these two models and then compare them. So first, let's look at the query model, okay? So immediately we have our first problem, which is that in the case of IR, it was all the same kind of terms that we were dealing with. So they were all words or bigrams or trigrams, what have you. But here there are fundamentally two different things. So there's a triple pattern here, whereas for the results there are n tuples of triples. Okay? So you can build a probability distribution on triple patterns, but you'll never be able to compare that with a probability distribution on triples, right? It just doesn't make sense at all. They are distributions on two different things entirely. So there's fundamentally a vocabulary mismatch here. So what we do is try to bridge that by thinking about it in a certain way. So the way we think about this is like this. So I think the analogy to this is to say you have a corpus which is actually in Hindi, but your query is in English, right? So yeah, you can build a probability distribution of words over English and then probability distribution over words in Hindi. Doesn't work, right? So what do? The idea is to translate your query into Hindi. So there is an English language query, you translate it into Hindi, then you build your language model, then things are fine, right? So it's exactly the same principle here. So what we are doing is we are considering each triple pattern as a unit, right? Just like we considered words as a unit, each triple pattern as a unit, and trying to figure out what its translation could be. Okay? So saying Spielberg directed (X), so that's our triple pattern. So maybe it is this, directed Schindler's List, Munich, Jaws, or it could be this, or this, or this. It could be any of these. But we have probabilities associated with these translations, right? So it's very likely that this triple pattern does not correspond to Tarantino directed Kill Bill, surely. I mean, the values don't match at all, So that would be like a probability of 0. But it could be any of these other Spielberg movies that were directed by Spielberg. And note that we are taking these triple patterns independently of each other, okay? So we are ignoring the fact that this question mark X has to be the same. So we are taking each triple pattern independently and translating each of them independently. So this is just like, again, going back to our analogy of English queries and Hindi corpus, right? So one way you do it is you take one English word, translate it to Hindi, take another English word, translate it to Hindi, and that's your query. So same principle here. And moreover, the statistics that we have are for these individual triples, okay? We do not have statistics for a combination of triples at all. So that's another consideration. It basically looks like this. So you have your triple pattern,